Greetings to everyone in our viewing audience and those who are streaming. And I want to thank just everyone that has an interest in this, whether you heard it from a friend, whether you came here out of curiosity, for whatever reason. I'm really happy to see all of you here tonight. And that introduction made me sound quite old, and I got to thinking about it, and yeah, girl, you're getting up there. I'm 83 this year, and I had just discussed with my sister, yes, it's time we pass on this baton to you younger people. Those of you who are out there who have been in the fight and been there for the cause, you know what we've been like. We don't have to teach you our reasons or demands for reparations. We've all lived through it. I feel like I'm just like you are. Some of my experiences as a child are some of your experiences as a child. And I came from a very, I'd say, mixed up family. It's a one that didn't cause mental problems. But just before we get into the United Nations part, I just wanted to share with you, I came from one of those strange families that lived up in Terre Haute, Indiana area. And my, I guess, great grandmother had a lot of children for her. Hold it?
Yes, ma'am.
One of us is too loud, I guess loud, the other one's not loud enough. Okay. My great grandmother had a lot of babies for her slave master, and he must have loved her because they had a family unit. And she was wise enough to, as he was toward the end, she said, we have all these children. Don't you think you could at least give them their freedom? Because back in the day and under the law, if you had children, they were assets to the family. They weren't considered as children. So that great white grandfather of mine wasn't really thinking about it, really. It was the mother that was thinking about it. You know how we women are. And she talked him into giving him not only all of their freedom, but the plantation too. And this was way before slavery had ended, you know. So what did great grandmother do? But she went to her black church, and they set up and helped start that Underground Railroad. And at that time, that was punishable by death if you get caught, you know. But she worked that, and she had white Quaker friends. They're called friends now. They were Quakers then. And they didn't like the idea of slavery, so they were willing to help in this Underground Railroad. And they did this for many years and were very successful with it. And when I grew up, every year we would celebrate our success under the Underground Railroad. And that gave us a good feeling about what we had done. Of course, some of my relatives had to give in. They chased after the dollar, so they decided they were going to go white. So they went all the way and were sliding in, told us, we love y'all, but don't come visit. But anyway, in my lifetime, I went through the experiences you did. And it had to do with identity. And during those times of growing up, there were many occasions when I wasn't quite sure where I fit because of that background, because I grew up in a white town. in Watsika, Illinois. Some of you might have heard of it. I don't know. And my family were the plasterers for that town. So I grew up in an atmosphere where I was accepted because we helped build the town. And I was not white. That wasn't the issue at all. But for everyone else in the town, there was an issue. But what I learned from that experience, I learned that there are different types of white views on the problems that we have here in the United States. And there were a lot of them that just hated the idea of slavery. So they're out there. And in this day and time, with reparations becoming a hot issue again, we've got to find them, and we ain't turning down no money. All right? let's remember that. Because like my sisters have quoted, a lot of times it was the slave master for some crazy reason that got paid, and the slaves didn't get anything. So that wasn't right either. But today, what I want to do is give some tribute to my husband, because he is going to be speaking here tomorrow. And he is going to let you know why he's got this started, why we ended up with this name, Afrodescendant, and how he threw me out there to give me a try at it. One day, my dear husband, sitting right here, Silas Muhammad, came to me. I had been practicing law about at least 10 years then. And he said, Harriet, you know what we need to do on this reparations issue is approach the United Nations. And I said, the United Nations? I didn't study anything like that in law school. Wasn't on my mind. But you need to go, Harriet. You need to go find out what their procedures are, how they operate, how they do things. And that's going to be what we need to have in the future as our weapons for reparations. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. So I decided to take a month off of my practice, lost all that money, and went over there to the Geneva area. Didn't know up from down about European culture. And I carried these 3 big dead body bags of suitcases with me. And I thought I was going to get some help with them. I'm a little woman. Surely someone will help me with this big old bag. Didn't happen. I ended up struggling with those bags. By the time I got on the train, got to Geneva, had to go up the escalators, I was really struggling with those bags. They were about my size, 3 of them. And I got it all balanced and struggled, and I had it balanced just right. And this young white man tapped me on the shoulder. He said, you don't have to do all that. I said, what are you talking about? Because I'd already experienced they weren't going to give me any help, you know. So he said, just let go of them. And I said, no, I don't know whether I should trust him or not, you know. So I decided, okay, I'm going to let go. I eased up off the bags, and they were locked in the escalator. So they rode up to the top, no problem. I said, they don't have that in the United States, you know. So I went into an area I had picked out. I'm learning for my people, y'all, what to do in Europe, you know. Found out I had registered in a red light district. So that became a problem later. When I found that out, I checked out and got a more decent neighborhood to live in. But I started out there by going to a big Catholic church that had a seminar going on what do you do in the UN? How do you function in the UN? So that was right up my alley, and it's something I had planned for, and that's the first thing I did. And they gave us this program on how to meet with people, discuss your problem with them. They put me under the wings of a male attorney to teach me the ropes on how do you get along in the UN. So on the first day we went there, he decided he was going to introduce me to a lot of key white men who were like heads of their nations, or they were representatives of their nation. And it started off quite well, except I'm wondering, now what is he up to? Why is he introducing me in French? You know, why can't he do it in English? Something we would all understand. Well, I just went along with the program. The French went on, the expressions changed, they got flushed, their eyes started bucking, and that's the thing they had in common every time. So I'm sure that he was over there telling them that I was getting ready to stir up that reparations thing, something that most of Europe had been kind of fearing. You know, they didn't want to hear it. And they all had the same expression, so I said, yeah, okay, I know what you're doing. But still, I had been put under his auspices, so I listened and I took some advice from him. He told me, Harriet, if for your cause you want to be heard and taken seriously in the UN, what you have to do is be there for 7 years straight. And if you don't give it 7 years and be there every time, they met about 3 times a year, no one's going to take you seriously. No one's going to pay you any attention. I said, well, we are very serious about what we're doing. So when we would have these get-togethers and parties at night, and they weren't really parties, they were ways to get to know each other and put forth your cause while you were there. And this was back in 1992. I did not flinch from day one in letting them know what we were pushing for. And I told them, I'm here to make the United Nations conscious and aware of our needs in the United States to be paid reparations. We're going to get our reparations. 1992, told me that. And one woman came to me smiling. She said, oh, wait till the State Department hears about that. I said, well, all right, whatever. Tell them whatever you want to. But that's what we're here for. So we started learning as much as we could. They had a session they put together called UMPO, close to the United Nations. It meant Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization. This particular setup was held in the Netherlands, and we had to fly in there for that. My husband went with me on that, for that training. And we took another attorney from Los Angeles area, Theodore Egan's, and we went there for a whole week on that training. That organization was kind of unusual for the United Nations because the United Nations doesn't really like to get into the changing or interfering of other nation countries and what they do. They're not there to try to cause revolution or anything. So what they wanted to do was tell us, if you have the drive, and if you can learn the know-how, and it can happen. You want your country? Most everybody there wanted the country. They even had people from former Soviet Union, whose name was Georgia, And I think out of that bunch of us, that was the only country that actually went all the way and got recognized as a functioning nation. But we were there, and we learned quite a bit. We learned it was not so much about the territory, because they had a city-state they used as an example. Some of you are hearing this for the second time, but I want all of you to hear it so that you know our quest for reparations is very doable, and it has been done by other nations. You just have to know how to get it off the ground, how to get it started. But it's doable, and we're going to do it. You gotta want to do it. We learned what we could at that session. Toward the end of that session, they appointed about 5 of us to put together a week-long summary of everything. And to our surprise, there was sabotage going on in this session. There were a group of whites that broke off from us. We were supposed to do it as a group. Sum up what had happened during the week. They had put together what they wanted presented, and they were ready to move on us. So when we heard that, we said, it's not happening. So we met, the rest of us, and we put together our report. When we got back there just in time. We went up to the mic, took it over, and gave the report that we should have jointly given. But we learned something from that, and that's something I want to share with you. For those young people who are going to go on and go into these international arenas, watch your back. Watch your back. There's going to be somebody trying to stab you in your back. You would think not at that level would that happen, but it happens. All right. So these are the things that my husband, Silas Muhammad, wants to share with you, because most of us in the States, we are in our own organizations. We have been moving on this United States government to give us our reparations, do right by us, and to history hasn't happened. And you don't have to figure out why it hasn't happened. Well, you know, if somebody hits you in a car and they're the defendants, and they also run the courthouse, they're not going to be too inclined to rule in your favor, you know. And they'll wiggle and figure out a way as to why your case has no merit. It has no standing, as we call it, and it cannot be brought, or it should be dismissed. And most of the time, it is dismissed. So what Silas Muhammad wanted to do was get over there, learn the ways, and learn what is at heart. To make the United Nations get some backbone. And that's exactly what he did. I'm not going to tell what he's going to talk about, but it's real meaty. You'll have to come back tomorrow to hear the details of it. All right. He's going to give you the more precise details as to what got their attention. And it did. It got their attention. Some of them were kind of in shock. They were embarrassed. They looked at him, one man representative, one Egyptian representative stood up, kind of surprised. He said, "It takes a little boy to tell us that the king doesn't have on any clothes." And you all have heard that story. Yeah. And he was surprised at it. Others were surprised when he hit them with it. He said, there was a professor from Norway, very good, knowledgeable professor. and he pointed out to them what the problem was. And he said, Mr. Muhammad, you're absolutely right. We did make a mistake. We did leave you out of international law protection. Now we have to figure out, how do you fit? And they spent several years working with us and to try to right some of the wrongs they had caused us. And it's some of these things you'll find out tomorrow also. 17 years we spent going back and forth. We took them serious. You say 7 years, we'll give it 17. And they started us off at the Woodrow Wilson Palace right there in Geneva. And my husband had to point out to him, we can't discuss these things intelligently because we've been slaves and we speak the slave master's language. So will you, United Nations, provide us with, that went fast, provide us with interpreters. And so that costs money, you know. And United Nations on a skimpy budget, but do you know they gave us several seminars, and they selected the person to run this thing. They got delegations from these different countries. We're talking about 29 countries that have the slavery diaspora to deal with. And out of those 29 countries, the United Nations paid for and had representatives there from 19 countries. When we met, by the time we got to La Ceiba, Honduras, we were on the identity issue, which is a problem we all have. Not just here in the States, we have identity problems all up and down the South Americas, over in the Caribbean island, and even our people that we had smuggled into Canada, people up there. So we were dealing with those kinds of things. So the United States, the United Nations picked that for a reason. He's going to deal tomorrow with more of what was discussed. This was in La Ceiba, Honduras. And we'll go into what was discussed and the name and how we ended up with the name Afrodescendants. And this is a name that we picked for ourselves. How about that? We took a vote and we selected our own name, Afrodescendant. Now we want to put together the force of the 250 million people that we represent and have a force to go into in the future. Because we've done all this. It took us 17 years to get to this point with 19 other nations. So you're not alone in this. We've done our struggling here in the United States. We're going to go forward from here with other compatriots in those other countries, and we're going to make this reparations work for all of us. Thank you.